I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. We will be discussing how to transform manufacturing finance in the cloud by providing an overview of the Carlson Manufacturing CPM solution. Our solution is powered by Adaptive Insights, the #1 cloud corporate performance management software, and is a ready-to-implement budgeting, planning, and reporting solution developed specifically for manufacturers. But before we do that, I would first like to introduce my colleague, Kevin O'Brien, who is our Vice President of the Central Region and is a manufacturing finance specialist. Kevin has more than 20 years' experience in manufacturing finance and is a frequent speaker at seminars and other events. Kevin will lead today's presentation. My name is David Phillips, and I head up marketing at Carlson Management Consulting. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Today's webinar will last about a half hour, and hopefully we'll have some time to answer your questions. Please feel free to post your questions in the GoToWebinar panel on the side. If we don't have time to answer your question, we'll follow up with you directly. So let me speak quickly about our company and some of our customers, and then I will hand off to Kevin. Carlson was founded in 2010 and is headquartered in Woburn, Mass. We also have offices in Vermont and Ohio. We're really focused on helping clients transform finance through the implementation of best-in-class cloud financial solutions. We are a platinum partner of Adaptive Insights and one of the top 3 in the U.S. based on implementation services. We've won a number of awards from Adaptive, including the 2014 Partner Innovation Award out of recognition for our pre-built solutions, one of which we will be showing you today. We've provided more than 150 CPM implementations and optimizations for a growing list of satisfied clients nationwide. And that leads me to our next slide. You can see here a small sampling of our customers. The first line shows several of our manufacturing clients. They range from smaller single-site operators to multinationals with extensive operations, product lines, and requirements. What they all have in common was the need to take forward-focused planning to a new level, and they've accomplished that by working with Carlson. So now I'll go to the next slide so Kevin can speak about the benefits of our CPM solution. Kevin?
Thanks, Dave. As Dave indicated, we've got a manufacturing solution, and as indicated, it will help us do things like consolidate multiple locations into one, to help us create revenue forecasts that we need, to reduce implementation time dramatically, and implementation staffing both on an initial setup and an ongoing basis, and enables us to phase our rollout into multiple different designs. And with that, we'd like to move ahead to the demo. And the first thing I'd like to show here is one of the end results or end products, which is dashboards. And dashboards are a popular thing these days, and they provide focus and a nice overview. This is a dashboard that represents graphical analysis, summarizing some of the numbers that we'll look at over the next several minutes. You can see here there are different perspectives for different areas. This becomes a summary right here. But we also have different perspectives for the sales department, CRM, and production. And if we go back to the top area here, we can create different time frames as we look at these, of different quarters and years, and can drill back and forth. And we can also do drill down into these various numbers and create different charts and graphics. For example, I can create a trend line analysis here and look at a linear trend line. I can go into this other perspective area and start to drill into sales numbers, and we'll look at that in just a few minutes. And I can expand by levels, which are departments in our example here, to create a nice visual analysis of what is happening. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes, also show you some reporting, and then we'll circle back at the end. Where this all starts is in what I will call this overview area. And this creates some of the prepackaged model elements that Dave had referenced earlier. And as you can see in the right panel here, in the black, there are many different pieces here. There's the P&L, the functional P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, and I'll touch upon those. And numerous additional types of worksheets, including leases, loan amortizations, and things of that nature that can be assembled and put together to the specific needs of the user. As I start to touch a quick overview of some of these, The first I will show you is the P&L, which is one of the things we just looked at a minute ago. And the P&L and, of course, the balance sheet and the cash flow become the initial primary deliverables. The first thing I'd like to point out on the P&L, if you look here in the upper right, is that we can create different versions. And the working budget is where we are now, so a company may have put in their 2015 working budget that they might lock down upon completion for the year. But we can also put in different versions, such as a Q1 forecast. And this forecast, as you will see, incorporates 3 months of actuals, which are indicated in green, and 9 months of budget. And what's nice about this area is we can create different scenarios and different scenario analysis, which we find is something that's very typical. As we go to the balance sheet, we find many like to forecast a balance sheet, and that's not necessarily a new concept, but the mechanics and how it is done is important. It might be around days of sales, or it might be around revenue, or certain drivers that allow us to forecast our balance sheet. As companies grow and look at things like capital acquisition, debt, cash flow, forecasting on a balance sheet and related cash flows seem to become more and more important items. We see things like balance sheet capital acquisitions that might be put into the balance sheet before they are placed into service, things like debt that I mentioned before, leases and things of that nature. We've got one client who is in the process of building a new plant, so they're going to use this application to start projecting some of the ramifications of that and how it will affect their operation. The cash flow. Cash flow has been an important area, but becomes more and more important as companies are expanding, growing, and affecting what the impact of their decisions will be upon their cash flow, upon their credit lines, and things of that nature. We often see a basic cash flow like this, but oftentimes also variations and complexities around things like how fixed asset retirements are handled, about the ramifications of various things that are unique to their business. So cash flow has become, and continues to be, a very important area. So those become the base goals, but I thought I'd move into 3 major areas. The first I will look at is basic expense sheet, obviously a subset of the P&L. We could take a look at product revenue, cost of sales, and then also a bit of personnel. And we'll take the deepest look into the product sales because it seems to be a prominent area. But let's start with the expenses sheet. And as you see here, we all know what an expense sheet looks like, a G&A expense. A couple things to point out here. First of all, we can create different various time periods here. This is last year, the actuals, as you can see in green, and this has the current year forecast. We can bring in the actuals for the previous year. We can also extend this sheet out into subsequent years. Right now we've got to focus just on the calendar year 2015, but we can adjust that obviously to fiscal years. We mentioned the fact that we have different versions here, and those same versions permeate throughout the model, and we are right now in the 2015 working budget. But what I'd like to point out here is that we've got different levels, which is analogous to departments, if you will. That might also start to relate to things like cost centers, departments, different breakdowns, subsidiaries, and things of that nature. This company has an operations area and a corporate area. The corporate area houses things like the home office, G&A, finance, accounting, which is pretty typical to most companies. And they also have operational areas in the States, Canada, and the UK. And in this example, of course, we will have currency, and that currency can be easily handled and addressed throughout this model. If I dig a little deeper into the United States, this model has a particular departments and areas, and I'm going to select one, which is the Sales North area. The level structure, as much as the solution has many different elements that can be combined, the level structure will typically be unique to each company, needless to say. We've got several examples where I mentioned one location which is having a new plant, another where we are just adding a plant to the existing model that is in Canada. If we look into this area, in the north area, we see a couple different views here. There are gray cells which are locked down, as you can see here. And the reason they're locked down is either because we want to limit access or because this information is coming in from another place. In this example, things like salary and wages, commissions, payroll, taxes, and benefits are coming from another worksheet, which I'll show you in a few minutes. So users can populate those worksheets and the answers feed into here. There are white cells which can be populated by the user, and that can be managed by level and things of that nature. So we can put in the numbers we need. During the past several months, we had many people who were allowing access to their managers to put in the information they needed within their department. Now, operational areas, functional areas such as HR, but they have an ability to get in and self-serve and get the information they need out, as well as contribute to the information they need in. There are things in here like footnotes. If I hover over this footnote, users can put footnotes in, and those will flow through to the reports, which creates, again, kind of a real-time user experience. See in here drivers, and if I move away from here, I can see formula-based drivers where there are calculations being done that take things like full-time equivalents times assumptions, cost per head, drivers that push through the model. We can also into different various account splits for areas that are most beneficial to model. So that is the expense area. Next area I would like to show you a bit, the revenue area. And what we find, I will go into this product sales worksheet, this becomes a vital area for just about every manufacturing user that we work with. And it typically starts with something like this: units, price, revenue, stating perhaps the obvious, and then related cost of sales areas and things like margins. On the revenue side, several different examples. We have one company we're working with who has their set up by plant, similar to what we have going here, but one finance group manages everything. We have another where there's actually a sales planner who works more in an operational role and outside of finance, who's managing that in multiple plants. We also have where individual plant controllers manage their numbers within their various plants, locations, regions, similar to what we have here. We also have modeling where sales reps actually go into this model and forecast their numbers and create their sales forecast, and that is managed by the sales area. That becomes the revenue side of it. Then we also have the cost side of it that I mentioned, and that is where we have different components that can be combined on an as-needed basis. For example, if we look over here, we see standard cost worksheets, bill of materials, subassembly, direct labor. And what we find is that companies at various levels put in these components based upon how their ERP system is built, how their costing system is built, and we can integrate these into the solution to help give them a view that they can't necessarily get in their existing ERP solution. Now, if I go back over here, we start to talk about things like drill down. These are different dimensions that we set up. I'm right now, as I showed you, in just the sales north area, but I can start to take these numbers and this entire gross margin computation and start to break it down by products. And that might be product groupings, like product group A with a series of products under it, product group B and C accordingly. So I'm going to jump down to product group A and get a smaller grouping, of course. And then if I go down to an individual product level, of course unique to the company, I start to see some uniqueness by actual products. And this seems to be something that companies are very much interested in, so they can start to break down and start to see their revenues and their percentage of revenues and their margins and the analytics that they're looking for to make good decisions. In many cases, another level is added, which is to say, I would like to actually break this down by customer, customer 1, 2, and 3. Not all do that, but that variation is available. Now we start to see white cells again, and this is where some of this modeling can take place, where user access can be created to help people to make adjustments to these numbers accordingly to recreate the forecast. We typically lock down an initial forecast, but those changes can be made throughout the course of the year as needed. Pricing, notice, is locked down. Oftentimes that is managed in another area so that that is locked down, but we can create unique pricing by user, by customer, as needed, towards the goal of, again, getting the right breakdown of what we need to do margin analysis. This can all also be set up in reports, and I will show you reports in just a few minutes. What's nice about this sheet also is that it's multidimensional, in that I can, instead of taking this entire gross margin computation and breaking it down by product and customer, can flip the sheet, if you will, and start to show it by, perhaps I want to be able to look at this by product line. And I can reverse the sheet. I have my products down the side, and I can start to say, what is my gross margin percentage by product line? What is my revenue by product line? What are my costs by product line? And I can continue to break this down by customer, or I can roll it up on a global level. So an analysis like this creates great flexibility towards not just locking down a budget at the end of the year and living with it, but to truly be able to make changes and adjustments throughout the course of the year. And a very effective planning tool and a very popular one. The third area, we've talked about expenses and product sales and cost of sales in various underlying areas, which is personnel. Personnel, of course, we all know personnel is a significant number, and I don't think it's anything new that companies model their personnel and create labor dollars and create absorption figures and what are my costs. What we like to do is add another set of information, as I think companies are looking for a better method of allocation. And that might mean departments, that might mean cost centers, work cells. So we can again take this entire company here and go down to a smaller level, which is what we've looked at previously, and go down to one department or area. This is a geographic region, but this could be more a department. We'll often see that is a department like material handling or direct labor or things of that nature. And this creates a smaller subset or a smaller version. These types of things are designed labor to measure things like head counts, to provide a more detailed payroll, taxes, and benefits. For example, 401k. For example, see different health plans. We also see companies starting to self-insure. We can do this for both salaried colleagues and hourly, and we can do that. Sometimes we will do blocks of individuals based upon their positions or role. What is nice about this is we can start to really go into detail and start to look at some of the numbers and the breakdowns of how our headcount and our full-time equivalents and our salaries are translated. And of course, these are accumulated. And one of the reports that I was just working on yesterday was that in departments, a headcount across the year by department, by area, so that they could see the trend lines around that and plan their capacity planning and personnel accordingly through the course of the year. Once all this work is done by our users at a variety of levels, the information is brought out in the area in reporting. And we want to create reports that are useful, that create focus, that provide the information that is needed. If I go to the report area here, I will see that I've got favorites, I've got a set of folders of personal reports, and I've got a set of folders of shared reports. These folders are set up similar to what you might see in email, and I can create the reports I need and can organize them on an as-needed basis. I'm going to show you about 4 different reports here today briefly. The first one is an expense variance analysis, and the reason I choose that one is it becomes an extension of the expense worksheet that I showed you earlier. Notice here that you can once again pick this up by level, and that might be the total company, that might be in certain departments, and maybe allowing each department to pick up what they need. Notice here also we can select different months here. Conditional formatting, meaning to highlight areas where there are significant variances so they can be analyzed. The idea of spending less time crunching numbers and time analyzing numbers and trying to identify variances. Notice that the footnotes that were put in at the sheet level flow through here so people can get a nice real-time view, collaborative view of what's going on. Just working with a company last week who is setting up their budgets for their managers and was creating a methodology to incorporate these footnotes so that everyone was on the same page. And the beauty of this is when those footnotes are entered, everyone has the latest, greatest real-time version of what they need. Report 2, rolling forecast. Rolling forecast, as many of you may have seen, is a significant area, an important area, a popular area. Not only do I want to be able to see what I have left in this fiscal year, be it 3, 6, 9, whatever number of months, I need to be able to look out further. That typically starts with a 12-month view, but certainly expands into a 2 and 3 and 4 and 5-year view, and we're starting to find people do a detailed forecast at a 1-year level and a more high-end forecast for years 2, 3, 4, 5 as they project out into the future. The beauty of this application is that these numbers can extend over the course of time, so we can simply do things like create a different starting point and have this rolling forecast extend out indefinitely. So it provides kind of a real-time view of operations and where things that are going. This can be done certainly for a P&L, but also for expenses, for balance sheet, for cash flow, and any of the other type of things that we've been looking at today. Report 3. Any operation that has different areas, different levels, different plans, we often see a report that looks very much like this. This is, of course, a consolidated balance sheet where the individual companies or levels are brought in with elimination. So we can see intercompany sales, intercompany receivables, remove those, and this becomes a basis for financial reporting and an ability to get reports out at month end. We find that we can help people get their reports out much more quickly and easily, oftentimes in even a day or two from the time they close the books, because many of these are set up so that the reports can be generated very quickly and easily. The reports I've shown you so far are resident here in our application, and we like that people can get into the application and work with them. But we often find, too, that companies need to generate a report book, a monthly set of financials, a quarterly set of financials, something that's printed and sent to the boardroom, or maybe sent out to people that they can access them, be it on their PC or their phone or their iPad, whatever the case may be. Maybe something that needs to be attached and emailed or sent to the bank. So we can create monthly reporting packages, one of the best practices towards creating to close and disclose quickly and easily. And notice here when I select my March package and I run this report, this can be shown in Excel, which obviously means then it can be saved and can be set up to email, to be printed, to sent to users and things of that nature. This is, of course, formatted with the logos, the color schemes, the looks specific to the company needs. We try to bring in both the reports that they like to see in the format they like to see them, also with an eye to some new suggestions or thoughts of the way we are seeing that reporting take place. And these reports also, as we said earlier, can be manifested in the form of dashboards that allow focus to users to help them on a daily basis to make good decisions towards their business. So I hope that gives a bit of an idea of some of the best practices around collaboration, around reporting, around rolling forecasts, around driver-based planning. Dave, let me turn it back to you if I may.
Okay, great. That was a nice job, Kevin. We do have a number of questions. This first question is, our budget is a time-consuming process, but we get through it every year. What kind of time savings do you think we could expect with your solution?
That's a good question. Time savings is always a moving target, a difficult thing to measure. I think certainly time savings are significant in that if you start to view the budget as an ongoing process instead of just the last 2 months of the year, there are significant time savings not only initially, but off into the future, because those numbers just kind of extend and perpetuate themselves. So when we have to start to do things like look at year 2, significant savings there because the build is there and we can extend those numbers out like I was showing you. But also when we start to have to do quarterlies. We were just talking to a company yesterday, they need to do quarterly updates. Again, those numbers are there and can perpetuate themselves, and even monthly. So that's when time savings starts to become really significant as the budget is perpetuated. Understanding we're still going to lock down that initial budget and keep it locked down for the whole year and report off it. The other significant savings is oftentimes in reporting, and I think I mentioned that a bit earlier. We see savings specifically. A company we just worked with is incorporating, we're taking their entire report package, 8 entities, several different currencies, and reducing their time by approximately a week. And we all know that that reporting comes each and every month, and those savings can be significant. Another one we worked with actually are able to get their reporting done in literally 1 to 2 days from the time when they get close. They get the data integrated into this application and can report quickly and easily. Hope that helps.
Okay. Yeah, we have another one here. I've taken a look at the brochure on your website as well, which is great. You mentioned that best practices are incorporated into the model. What are some of those best practices?
I hope I weave those into some of the dialogue, but I think to summarize those specifically, I think driver-based plans, that we can adjust drivers like rates and numbers and create new numbers, what-if analysis type things. We see more and more a call to that. Company, new CEO, new reporting requirements, new what-if scenarios, rolling forecast that we mentioned, a forward-looking perspective in, for 12 months or longer, an integrated solution with all the key elements. Self-serve, that people can get their own data on a Tuesday night to prep for a meeting tomorrow morning when they can't find the person they need, and quickly close and get our numbers out. Those are the best practices that we typically see, but also the solution becomes more than just a physical model. It starts to be the mindset of ability to align these budgets and these decisions with the overall strategy of the company, of the strategic plan, the things that start to happen in the boardroom, that finance is aligned with those things and can add value. Hope that helps.
Yes. Okay, great. We do have another question here. Since this is a pre-built solution, how do you manage the implementation and any configurations for our specific requirements?
Good question. I think as much as the solution is pre-built, and that provides significant efficiencies around how we can get this in place and help people implement it quickly and easily, there's always going to be a bit of a uniqueness of how we configure, as the question infers. What we typically do is go through a scoping process, and with about a 45-minute dialogue around 80 to 100 questions, we can start to get a pretty good idea of how to mix and match the key components. For example, in the area of revenue and costing, how deep do we need to go on costing and labor and bill of materials and components, and how do we group those things and configure that? Are there any specific requirements which we're typically able to surface through that process? Then we're able to build something while maintaining the efficiencies of a pre-built model. It's something that's unique and tailored to individual needs. So that's how we do it, and we found that it works quite well for us.
Okay, great. It looks like we're bumping up to our 30-minute deadline. So if you don't mind, Kevin, I'm just going to grab the controls quickly and just close with some final thoughts.
Please do.
Okay. Well, once again, Kevin, thank you very much for your presentation. And I also want to thank everyone for their time today and their questions. Hopefully, Kevin's overview offered a glimpse of how you might be able to use our solution to transform finance within your own manufacturing organization. Of course, there's a lot more detail to the solution than you've seen today. And you can see our contact details on this slide. And I would encourage you to contact us for your own personalized demo. And also, as one of our attendees mentioned, we do have a brochure on our website for our Carlson Manufacturing CPM solution. So I would encourage you to visit the website and take a look at that. And also, you can see our telephone number there. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. And so that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you again, and have a great day.